I'd like to call to order the April 28, 2015 meeting of the Millcreek Supervisors, and we'll begin with a pledge of allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there any public comment on agenda items other than development or rezoning applications? Hearing none, we'll move on to approval of minutes. We have before us the April 14th, 2015 meeting minutes. If there's no additions or corrections to the minutes, I'll entertain a motion.
I so move.
I'll second.
Mr. Groh?
Yes.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Approval of bills. We have before us the Township bills dated 4/28 of 2015 and also the sewer revenue bills of April 28th, 2015. If there's no additions or corrections to the bills, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move we pay the bills.
I will second.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Groh?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next, we move on to Resolution 2015-R-8. Mr. Groh.
Okay, thank you. Resolution 2015-R-8 is a resolution to establish a student local government ambassador program. Whereas the Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors has encouraged townships to involve students in local government, and whereas the Board of Supervisors believes that student participation in the process of local government can foster interest in the work of local government and provide hands-on experience, and whereas the Board of Supervisors believes that establishing a student ambassador program in Millcreek Township will help accomplish these objectives and provide opportunity for student input and perspectives. It is hereby resolved by the Board of Supervisors of Millcreek Township that as follows, excuse me. Number one, the Student Ambassador Program is created in partnership with the Millcreek Township School District, and if the Board of Supervisors should so elect, other schools serving Millcreek students. Number two, student ambassadors will be selected in a manner deemed appropriate by the school district and the Board of Supervisors. Number three, the program shall extend to include participation in meetings of the Board of Supervisors, the Township Planning Commission, the Zoning Hearing Board, Parks and Recreation Commission, Recycling Committee, and Sewer Authority. Number four, the school district or other participating schools shall provide the Board of Supervisors the identity of the students who are scheduled to attend designated meetings. Number five, the student ambassadors will be welcomed at meetings and urged to participate in the meetings by offering opinions and insight from their perspective at appropriate times, but shall not have any voting authority. Number six, township officials shall communicate and work with officials of the school district and other participating schools as needed to implement the program. And that if we have a vote on that, she would be adopted today. I make a motion that we approve that resolution.
I'll second that.
Mr. Groh?
Yes.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Okay.
And welcome to our new student ambassador.
Okay. Let me provide a brief bio about our student, our first one here tonight. This is Isaac Liston. He is a student at McDowell High School, a senior. We're very glad to have him here, and we just have a little brief presentation, and Isaac will have a word or two when I'm done. Isaac is the first student in this new program where students serve on different boards as ambassadors for local government. As I said, Isaac goes to McDowell. He is the congressional coach for McDowell's speech and debate team, where he and the rest of the team are going to Fort Lauderdale in May, not for spring break, but to the National Tournament of Catholic Speech and Debate League. Jake Keel is a sophomore on whom Isaac taught congressional debate, will also be going to the National Speech and Debate Association Tournament in Texas later in June. Though these accomplishments should be commended due to funding constraints, the team will not be able to attend all of these tournaments. Isaac is also part of the McDowell UN model team, where last weekend he won a Superior Delegate Award and was awarded a $15,000 scholarship. He is senior historian among senior officers for 2015. Isaac does not have a decision of where he's going to go on to college, but he does plan on majoring in business, and I do hope that he learns from these experiences. So, Isaac, you have a word or two you might want to say? We give you, you got a microphone there?
I got a mic.
I'm happy to be here. This is hopefully going to be a great experience. I've spoken in bigger terms than this, so I'm not that much scared at all. For speech and debate, I've been doing it for 2 years, and I've been teaching my congressional team for this last year. I've seen a lot of them grow. I've seen a lot how to make resolutions, and the resolution that we just passed looks exactly like it.
Okay.
So I'm actually glad to see that we're following the right format. And also with these 2 last accomplishments, I'm also an Eagle Scout. I forgot to mention that as well,
Okay.
from Troop 52. That is at Grandview in this district. So
Okay.
I think that should summarize it all.
Okay. Go Trojans.
Okay, moving on with our agenda, consideration of subdivision plans. The first is for Bruce and Deborah Minnick, a small subdivision plan. A subdivision plan to show the creation of a 2-acre parcel, B1, that is to become an integral part of the neighboring property, Whispering Woods, Lot 181, located east of Thomas Road, south of Steratania Road, in Tract 355.
At their meeting of April 14th, the Planning Commission recommended approval with one requirement, and that is that the 1.429 acre parcel, deemed parcel B1, is to become an integral part of the neighboring property, Whispering Woods, Lot 181.
Okay, is there anyone here tonight to speak in favor of the subdivision? Okay, sir, if you come up, give us your name and address, and please sign in at the podium.
Good evening. My name is Bill Miller, address 5442 Mystic Ridge, Millcreek Township. Myself and my wife have entered into an agreement to purchase a parcel of a 10-acre parcel, 2 acres specifically, for Bruce and Deborah Minnick, which we will integrate into our existing plot. The mini slot borders our backyard, basically, so we're asking for the board's approval of this subdivision and the integration.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak either in favor or against the subdivision? Hearing none, is there any comments from the board?
None from me.
I'll move approval of the small subdivision with the requirement becoming an integral part of the neighboring property.
I'll second that.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Grill?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Next, we have Millcreek Township School District, a small subdivision plan. A subdivision plan to show the creation of a 4.905 acre lot 1, a .906 acre parcel, lot 2, and a .961 acre residue parcel, lot 3, located east of Highland Road between West 32nd Street and West 34th Street in Tract 77. Mr. Morris?
Planning Commission recommended approval and noted 2 requirements. One is that lots 2 and 3 shall be labeled as permanently dedicated for a public park. And the second is that the drawing must have lot 2 and 3 side and rear yard setback lines removed.
What was the vote on that, Mr. Morris? Or Mr. Pierce, one of the two.
I'll tell you in a second.
Charlie wasn't there, I don't think, or was he? Yeah. I believe it was unanimous vote, is that right?
That was unanimous, 6-0.
6-0 of the board members that were there, yeah.
Okay. As I'm assuming the majority of the people here are here in response to this, I just have a short comment that I'm going to make prior to having anybody speak. First, please understand, we're here tonight only to make a decision on the subdivision of a piece of property. No other comment is going to be taken or considered about any other issue that may arise about that property. So please keep your comments restricted to strictly the subdivision of the property. Second, if there are individuals who can act as a spokesperson for a larger group, we would rather have them express the group's interests rather than hear a number of redundant comments, the same comments over and over. We understand that there is probably a lot of people that want to talk, but what we want to do is make sure that the comments that we're hearing are a new comment. Please don't come up and just repeat what the previous person said. And lastly, please keep in mind that 2 of the 3 supervisors were present at the Planning Commission meeting when this was considered. Mr. McGrath had other township business. He couldn't be there. However, the supervisors have discussed the results of that Planning Commission among the 3 of us. So please keep that in mind when we're up here with our comments. Okay, first, is there anybody here today to speak in favor of the subdivision? Yes, sir. Could you please come up to the podium, give us your name and address?
Tim Sennett on behalf of the Millcreek Township School District, solicitor, 3740 West 26th Street. As you've indicated, Mr. Fabrisky, the school district is making a request for a minor subdivision of their property at the Ridgefield School, dividing into the 3 parcels. There is no other request before you. There is no zoning request before you. There is no development plan request before you. Strictly the subdivision request as we've identified. We have reviewed the application process and the ordinance, subdivision ordinance with your personnel. We understand that we have completed the application fully and identified all the necessary information that is required to be on the application, including the subdivision plan. And we believe we're in accordance with your ordinance. And as a result, I believe it was appropriate for you to grant the subdivision. I'm happy to answer any questions you have in regard to the school district position.
Does the board have any questions?
Attorney Sennett, you noted, or you heard the requirements as noted by our engineer as far as labeling the residue, the lots 2 and 3 as public park, and there's no issue with that?
Well, the only concern we have in labeling it as a public park is that we also have to have it in accordance with our policies. So it may be a public park, but we're subject to the facility use policy of the Millcreek Township School District. That way, we still control the property as the owners of the property, but we would identify it as for open public use. So I guess in regard to the language that we'll put on there, we're going to incorporate the facility use policies of the Millcreek Township School District.
I mean, there never was, it's never been an issue of who owns it. It's been an issue of dedicating it to the public for use. So if you do that subject to your facility use, that's consistent with what they do everywhere else.
Similar to a ball field at Asbury or...
It's the same as every other piece of property that we own. All are subject to facility use policy, including the public parks that you operate for us.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of the subdivision? Okay, hearing none. Is there anyone here to speak?
I think we have some.
We have one?
Yeah.
Please come up and give us your name and address, sir, and please sign in at the podium.
My name's Matthew McLaughlin. I live at 3302 Highland Road, directly across the street from the school. I'm very much in favor for this to be subdivided out. I think it's a good thing what's happening with it. And I know you don't want to talk about any of the sale or any of that stuff. It's strictly on the subdivision, but if it's going to be sold and the townships or the school district's willing to make a park there to give back to the community, I'm all for it. And again, I live at 3302 Highland Road, right across the street from the school.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I think we have somebody else here, too.
Okay, is there anyone else to speak in favor of the subdivision?
Matthew Baldwin, representing Ball Web Inc. We own a house at 3418 Pacific Avenue, 2 blocks away from the property. We think it's fantastic. The school district is going to dedicate a portion of the property to become a park, basically so it can be preserved for public use and enhancing the neighborhood. can't see any reason why anyone in the neighborhood wouldn't like that amenity added to the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, anyone else to speak in favor?
Let's say we have another one.
Sean Fedorko, 5130 Fox Park Drive in Millcreek. Even though I don't live right next to the facility, as we look at plans and trends and community planning, we realize that there's a need for integration of places where we live, work, and play. By parceling out this portion of the area, a park that has classically been a park and had community access, we preserve that functionality regardless of the utility that the building site is put to. So we're building communities where we have access to places to live, work, and play in the same location. By parceling this out, ensuring that it's not roped into and associated with whatever that site is used for, repurposed for, regardless of how it's zoned or sold. We're preserving the kind of ecosystem, the kind of community we want to build. So I support that.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, is there anyone else to speak in favor of the subdivision? Okay, is there anyone here to speak in opposition to the subdivision? Yes, sir. When you come up, sir, again, if you please just give us your name and address, and please sign in at the podium.
My name is Franklin Laskowski. I live at 3111 West Line Street. And I've got a few concerns about this subdivision that I don't understand. One is, why does it have to be subdivided? And two, there's certain things that I've seen in the program that Millcreek has. In Millcreek, I don't know whether you call them laws or whatever, but they state that if you set property aside for playground, you know, public use, which I am in favor of that one. What I disagree with is that when you subdivide this property, there's no parking except out on the streets, because the way the other part is going to be dealt with, you wouldn't have parking because that would be private property. The other thing that was in the thing was that there are no facilities for kids to use for going to the bathroom, and nobody has ever stated that they were going to put something there. And there is nobody that's stating the fact that there's going to be somebody there to watch over that property. Because when you have families going there, and I've gone there, I've taken my grandson there, I see people set up their hockey games and their small little football kids, you know, doing their games and everything, which is great. But the fact remains is that the Millcreek public in my neighborhood are responsible for that area. And it shouldn't be our responsibility to be watching over that property. It is your responsibility to do something about this. And nothing's being said about it. And now, one of the meetings have I gone to, have they ever said anything about what they were going to do with that property, how they were going to maintain that property, and everything, and then all that comes up is now we're going to subdivide it, which I don't understand why you have to subdivide a property. It's right there. From 34th to 32nd, from this corner to that corner. What I feel is important is if somebody gets hurt on that property, I don't care where they're from, Erie, Millcreek, McCain, Edinburgh, it doesn't make a difference. You're going to be responsible. And without somebody being there, and without somebody having facilities for the people that come there, I just see a problem. And I would just like to, you know, your answers in regard to that.
Well, my first answer would be that that property is going to be retained in ownership by the school district. The use of that property is going to be subject to, and you heard, I think, Attorney Sennett say, that the use of that property is going to be subject to facility use agreements that would be initiated by the parties using it, and it would have to be in compliance with the facility use rules and regulations of the school district. So, you know, I guess you're asking us, the township, what are we going to do? Of course, we're going to assist in any way we can with this, but the use of the property is actually subject to the facility use agreements of the school district.
Mr. Laskowski, going along with what Mr. Figaski just said, I don't see any difference if this is approved between today, if it's approved, and yesterday when it was owned by the school district. It's still going to be owned by the school district. If you wanted to use that property, you'd still need a facilities use agreement. It's open to the public, but if I understand this correctly, that if you wanted to have some kind of an organized function there, that you would have to go through the school district to do that. It's never had restroom facilities for the park itself. It's never had any kind of formal parking facilities. I don't see anything different today than...
But they did.
Well, there was some parking along the road, yes.
No, what I'm talking about is, when that was a school, they always had the parking there. But see, now that they're subdividing it, unless I'm not getting this right, is that a line is being drawn down through. So technically speaking, you have taken that parking away.
Well, again, now we're getting into the development issues, if there's some kind of a development that's going to happen in the future. Your question was the area as it is right now versus what it would be if it was subdivided. There really isn't much difference as to who's going to be using the property or who it's available to or how it's going to be used. If you and your neighbors wanted to go over there and have the kids run around like they have been, I don't know if there's going to be any difference between it being subdivided and not being subdivided. Now, when you get into the land development phase, if and when we get to that point, then you're going to have legitimate questions as far as access and parking. That's going to be a legitimate issue, but we're not there now.
I understand that.
We're only at the subdivision issue right now.
But why does it have to be subdivided? Is what I don't understand.
That's totally up to the owner of the property, which is the school district. We have to make sure that the township has to make sure that if an owner of property, in this case the school district, wants to subdivide their property into 2 parcels or 3 parcels, like the Minnix just did, we just have to make sure that they follow our rules and meet all of our regulations. And that's what we're here for, and that's what our engineering department's here for.
I thank you for your answers and your time.
Thank you, sir. Okay, is there anyone else? Yes, sir.
Good evening. I'm Tom Pendleton, 5566 Larchmont Drive. I've been a taxpayer in Millcreek for about 20 years. First, I'd like to start with a description of what the school district is actually proposing to do. The school district has said several times, and I'm going to pull my easel over. is that, and those speaking in favor of the proposal have said several times, that what is being created is a park. Well, the park already exists on the acreage outside of the confines of the school and the parking lot. The rest of that acreage is the existing park. What the school district is proposing to do is to run a line right down the middle of the grassy area so that almost half of the grassy area of the park is lost from this area that is proposed as the park. The only thing that's proposed to be the park is this narrow alley that's less than 50 yards wide. It's 147 feet on this end, 145 feet on this end. When an entity is creating a park, it has to justify that the size and dimensions of the park meet the proposed uses of the park. As you know, one of the frequent uses of that park, especially in the summertime, is EYSA soccer, and after that, football. I know that because my daughter takes karate nearby, and I drive by there a couple of times a week. If you reduce the size of the park from this width, as it is now, to this width, as it is proposed to be, it's too small to play soccer on. It's too small to play football. So there are significant changes being proposed for this park. Just as significantly, if you look at the playground is on the area that's being lost. The basketball court is on the area that's being lost. Those are things that people do at a playground and a park. So if you move the playground in its current dimensions right here, you're losing practically this entire area here. It's also significant, as Mr. Laskowski pointed out, that all the parking is on the other lot. And parking is an issue that's important to the supervisors because just a couple of weeks ago, the supervisors passed an ordinance dealing with the parking around the Chopsticks restaurant. The supervisors know that when the only parking available is on the street, it's a problem. It's a problem for the neighborhoods. It's a problem for drivers. The supervisors are also concerned about parking in this particular area because Regulation 2004-6, adopted by Millcreek Township and available on the website, says that there's to be no parking on the west side of Highland Avenue between 34th and 32nd, and no parking on the east side of Highland from 34th to Ridgefield School. I'm not exactly sure where that line is drawn, but you're cutting out all the parking that might be available over here and all the parking that is available on this side. You can't park on Pacific because to get to the park, you have to trespass through the yards right here. So the only place to park is on this street and on this street. That's dangerous to park on 32nd Street. So the only safe place to drop kids off, if they're going to play soccer here or football, on whatever portion of the field is left, is on 34th Street. That's not enough. If anybody's been to an EYSA soccer game, like I have for the last 8 years, parents, grandparents, friends, everybody goes because they want to support the kids. There's absolutely no way that you can fulfill the parking requirements of even this leftover park by saying you can only park on 34th Street. As one of my law school professors told me, the facts matter. And these facts matter a lot. And that's why the subdivision ordinance says if you're creating a park, you have to provide parking facilities. This park doesn't have any parking facilities. Moving more specifically to the requirements of the subdivision ordinance itself, it says in paragraph 2.01, section 5, that all subdivision has to conform to the comprehensive plan. The master plan of the township, and that's in paragraph 2.01, section 5. According to page 3.04-6 of the subdivision ordinance, the master plan identifies recommended locations for public buildings, parks, zoning districts, and other public improvements. One of the definitions in the subdivision ordinance is the definition of open space. And that says land not to be developed for residential, agricultural, business, or industrial use, but to be preserved for the development of public or private recreation and park areas. Public open space is dedicated to and accepted by the township or other public agency and maintained by it for the enjoyment of the public.
Mr. Pendleton?
Yes.
I don't want to interrupt you, sir, but we do have a 5-minute limit on speakers. And
let me quickly then move to Appendix D of the comprehensive plan, which is this open space plan. As you can see, Ridgefield is right here. The entire 8-acre parcel is identified as public land. This subdivision proposal only intends to preserve less than 2 acres. So this subdivision proposal violates the comprehensive plan. That means it cannot be approved because it violates the subdivision ordinance. Thank you.
okay, thank you, sir.
If I could just make a couple comments. When you say it violates our comprehensive plan, the comprehensive plan is a recommendation. It's not a law. It's a recommendation for future land use.
I understand that.
And we do try to pay close attention to what's in our comprehensive plan. Many times, I'll refer to our engineer, our zoning officer, and say, what does the comprehensive plan say about that parcel? But as far as when you refer to the subdivision violating the comprehensive plan, it does not abide by what is recommended, but there is no, I wouldn't call it a violation.
The subdivision ordinance requires compliance with the comprehensive plan, unless you request a modification or a variance. The school district has not requested one.
Well, another issue that you brought up, and I'd like to refer to it quickly. You talked about the township, and I think you said it was 2004, passed parking restrictions for that area, and I was on the board at that time, and much of that had to do with the fact that we had requests from the neighbors regarding parking in that area, and the neighbors were concerned with, as an example, I probably attended at least 15 or more DARE graduations at Richfield School, and when you would try to find a parking space, you were either parking in the road or in the grass, or they were on both sides of 34th Street, both sides of Highland, and many times when the school district would have a function at Richfield, it was that way. People were parked everywhere. In what you're referring to, if there's going to be a formal use of the parkland, it's going to create the same situation. Now we're getting back to the development phase of this whole process. If we get into the development phase and the school district says we're going to permit formal use of that property by Erie Youth Soccer or a football organization or lacrosse or whatever, then there's going to be issues. There's going to be issues with parking, and how are they going to handle it? Right now, what's before us is a subdivision where the school district says they want to dedicate the residue parcel, lots 2 and 3, as a public park, and for all we know at this time, that could be for the neighborhood to go over and throw a Frisbee. That's all that we know right now.
But the subdivision plan ordinance itself says you have to designate in your application a particular number of spaces based on the number of people you think are going to use the park. That is in section, I believe it's 3.18.
Tom, if I might,
It's 3.18.3.
Tom, with all due respect, you're cherry picking. If this is not a big residential subdivision, this is not a land development plan, there's no requirement actually for the school district to set aside any open space. It's choosing to do that. This is not a multifamily development where they have to set aside open space. They just are coming in trying to create an area that they want to designate and maintain as open space. When we have a residential subdivision, we do not make a residential developer point out where he's going to park on every one of the 80 lots in that subdivision. That doesn't happen until somebody comes in with a permit to construct something on a given lot. Now, you are cherry picking in the sense that you want to create this artifice where there's no way the school district can possibly meet your standards. But your standards are not Millcreek's.
The standards are not impossible to meet.
Your standards are not Millcreek's.
I'm reading from the comprehensive plan and I'm not cherry picking. It's not limited. The requirement there is not limited to residential subdivision.
The comprehensive plan is a planning document. The municipality's planning code flatly says it doesn't trump any statute, any ordinance, and it isn't anything mandatory at all.
Absolutely. That's section 100303 or 05.
Then let's not cite the comp plan too much.
The comprehensive plan has been incorporated into the subdivision.
No, it hasn't been. It's been referred to.
Yeah.
There's a big
It's a
difference.
referred document.
Obviously, we have a difference of opinion.
Yes.
And that's fine. So thank you for your time. I know I've been up here for longer than 5 minutes.
Thank you, Attorney
Appreciate
Townsend.
that.
Okay, is there anyone else to speak about the subdivision? Yes, sir. If you give us your name and address, and please sign in.
Yes, my name is Russell Buck. I reside at 3231 West 13th Street.
Thank you.
I also own property at 2422 Westland. My question is, there was limitations mentioned on the property that the school sits on, and are those limitations open to putting a road in, connecting up with Westline?
Again, we're not talking about a development plan here. We're talking about a subdivision of property. Okay, a road or something like that that you're referring to, if we got into a development phase, at some point in the future, then issues such as roads or parking would come into play.
Stormwater management, all that.
Because I just have concerns with the fact that if they have plans to connect a road up with Westland across 32nd Street, that it may create more traffic issues, and then if anybody using that property has trucks heavy enough, there are limitations on Westland for the weight of the trucks also.
Here again, though, you're talking all about
I understand
development.
that it's
This is merely the subdivision of a piece of property.
You raise a good point, but it's just premature or not in the state.
That there were mention of limitations on what should be done
with the property.
And that's why I was questioning what, limitations were on that. And is there any answer on?
If you're talking about limitations on the piece that's being subdivided off, the limitations are it's going to be retained as a public park.
Yeah.
The park, I have no problem with. I just, if there's a future plan to include a roadway going across there.
When we get to, or if we get to a development phase for the property, the township addresses things like public access, where it would be coming from, and well, what types of vehicles. Like Mr. Figaski said, parking, lighting, stormwater management, all that comes in under the development phase of township approvals. But we're not there.
Okay.
When you get right down to it, for this, not to belabor this, but when you get right down to the subdivision aspect of this, it's limited by dimensions only. That's all we're talking about right here. You can't go too narrow, in width to depth ratios. That's one of the limitations that there would be. Minimum lot sizes, minimum parcel sizes. That's pretty much the limitation of the subdivision.
Frontage on a public street.
Yep.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Yes, sir. Please come up, give us your name and address, and please sign in.
My name is John Morgan. I live at 1604 Bible Avenue. I'm also a member of the Millcreek Township Planning Commission. Gentlemen, good evening. I just want to say I think we're doing a great job explaining the subdivision to folks. The interaction is fantastic. The one concern I had at our Planning Commission meeting, and I understand the busy agenda this evening, you've got to get a lot of items accomplished today. But I'm wondering, under citizens to be heard, if folks might be able to express general concerns about the neighborhood at that time. I know at our Planning Commission meeting, we didn't really give folks an opportunity to really discuss future issues. And I know we're only talking about subdivision this evening, but it's already been announced in the paper. There's a planned sale of the building, there's a planned development for the building down the road. These folks know that's coming. I just suggest it might not hurt to give an opportunity to express some concerns earlier in the process than usual. That's all.
Well, John, if it does come to that, it comes to you with the Planning Commission first. And again, as long as we're only discussing a subdivision here.
Oh, right, yeah.
That's all we're going to take comment on. The citizens to be heard portion, if people come up and start talking again, that's why we're giving them the opportunity now. So that at that portion of the meeting, other issues that people have can possibly be addressed.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay, hearing none. Is there any further comments from the board?
I have done.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the subdivision as presented.
With the two requirements?
With the two requirements, that's what I mean, yeah.
I'll second that.
Mr. Groh?
Yes.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
And I vote yes. And in conjunction with this, the township is going to be issuing a written opinion on this particular vote. And that opinion will be available and brought up at
Decision.
Decision,
yeah.
on this decision.
You'll approve it at the next board meeting.
Right.
May
Well, if you-
12th.
unless I screw up big time, you'll approve it.
There'll be a written decision that comes out, and it'll be available at our next meeting, May 12th. Okay? Thank you.
Okay.
Moving on in the agenda, we have referral to the Planning Commission of a petition requesting a change in zoning classification. This is for HH&R Partnership for property located at 3746 West 12th Street, now Zone C2 General Commercial District and R1 Single Family Residential District, asking for a change in classification of the R1 Single Family Residential District portion to C2 General Commercial District.
Okay.
Is there a motion to refer that to the Planning Commission?
Yeah, I'll move to refer that rezoning request to the Planning Commission meeting.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Mr. Grohl?
Yes.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
And I'll vote
Okay.
yes. We'll just
We
take
need
a
a
little
recess
break
for a
here
second here, yeah.
until the people who want to leave.
Okay.
Okay, I think we continue. Item 9 is the announcement of bids and quotations received. The first is for the Erie Area Council of Governments. Mr. McGrath.
Okay, we went through the COG for several items for road maintenance, both services and materials. The first was for asphalt compounds, emulsions, and applications. For AET, this is our tack oil. We received a bid from Russell Standard for $1.182, and from Suit Coat for $1.15 per gallon. It's my recommendation that we award the contract to Suit Coat.
I will second that.
Mr. McGrath.
Yes.
Mr. Grill.
Yes.
And I vote yes.
The second is for hot mix bituminous asphalt. And we do this a little bit differently than most. We don't just go with the low bidder because the township typically picks up the material, and it's all over Erie County, from Russell Standard on Peninsula Drive to Cross paving, and it's what ends up being the most convenient for the township, and the fact that many times when we are purchasing hot asphalt, which we don't do very often, but when we do, the material that we may be purchasing, whether it be the wearing course or the base course, the low bidder may not be making that material at the time. So I'm going to read off all of the bidders, and then what we would typically do is actually award contracts to all of those bidders to enable the township to purchase from any of them depending upon convenience. Okay, for 9.5 millimeter, Russell Standard was $56.50. Mayer Brothers was $60. Cross Paving was $63.36. And Joseph McCormick was $59. For 19 millimeter, Russell Standard was $52. Mayer Brothers was $54. Cross Paving, $56.33. And Joseph McCormick, $53. 25 millimeter, Russell Standard, $49.50 per ton. Mayer Brothers, $52.50. Cross Paving, $55.46. And Joseph McCormick, $51.50. We received bids for warm mix, but the township doesn't use warm mix. We do use cold patch. We received a bid from Russell Standard for $75 and Suit Coat for $76. Evan, do you see a problem if I just make a motion to approve those bids?
No.
Okay. I'd make a motion then that we approve those bids.
Okay, I will second that.
Mr. McGrath.
Yes.
Mr. Grill.
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Next, we have, I'm sorry, I misspoke. The amount that I gave for patch was not cold patch, that was warm patch, so strike that. We're going to move down to our cold patch material, and we have two bids. The first from Russell Standard for $79.50, and the second from Suit Coat for $82. And again, this is a convenience issue, and I would move that a contract be awarded to both of those bidders.
Okay, I will second that.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Groh?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Next, we have aggregate materials. The first is for type C, number 8 stone. We received a bid from Gertz Sand and Gravel at $9 per ton, and for Troyer Sand and Gravel, $8.30 per ton, and I would move that Troyers be awarded that contract.
Okay, and I will second that.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Groh?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
For type C, number 57 stone, Gertz Sand and Gravel was $9 per ton, and Troyer Sand and Gravel was $10.60 per ton, and I would move that Gertz Sand and Gravel be awarded that contract.
Okay, and I will second that one too.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Groh?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
And although I don't think, Ed, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't think that we went out for bid for 2A gravel. Did Millcreek bid 2A gravel? I don't think we did we? We may have? All right, well, we'll go ahead and award that just in case. This is all through the COG, so we're not committed to buying anything. For gravel, 2A sub-base, the only bidder was Gertz Sand and Gravel for $7.25 per ton, and I would move approval of that.
Okay, and I'll second that one.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Groh?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
And, okay, those are all delivered prices. Okay. The next, for those same materials, these are delivered prices. To Millcreek Township, the number 8 stone, $15.90. And that is from Gertz Sand and Gravel. And let me see here. I guess they're the only ones that bid on hauling it to Millcreek. Okay.
Yeah, they are.
So they all go through Gertz Sand and Gravel. Type C, number 57 stone, $15.90. The 2A, $14.15. And the granular 2RC, $13.15 from Gertz Sand and Gravel, and I'll move approval of that.
Okay, I will second that one too.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Groh?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
The next is for our milling operation. There was only one bidder, and that was from Swank for 64 cents per square yard, and I will move approval of that contract.
Yes, second.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Groh?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Next is for, well, that's slurry seal, which we're not doing, microsurfacing, we're not doing, crack sealing, we're not doing. Reclaiming and recycling of township roads. We received 2 bids. The first was from Mount Carmel Stabilization for $9.56 per square yard, and the second was from E.J. Brenneman for $13.90 per square yard. I will move that Mount Carmel be awarded that contract.
Okay, I will second that.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Groh?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
That's it.
Okay.
Next, we have quotations for the replacement. That's installation and materials of the trench drain in garage number 2. The low quote for this, for the material, was Trumbull at a total of $10,671.88. For the concrete reinforcement, the low quote was from Baycrete at $1,833. And for labor, the low quote was Miller's Plumbing at $5,200 for a total of $17,704.88. And I would recommend approval of those 3 companies to do the work.
And just FYI, we did receive quotes from 3 companies for each. So those are available if anybody wanted to take a look at them. That's a motion?
That's, well, I'm just making a recommendation.
Okay, I'll move approval.
I'll second that.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Groh?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next, we have ordinance number 2015-3. This is an ordinance of the Township of Millcreek, Erie County, Pennsylvania, amending the zoning ordinance number 2011-8 as amended, providing for purposes and findings of fact related to adoption of the amendment, adding and amending defined terms, establishing certain general and specific standards relating to the location, placement, construction, and maintenance of tower-based wireless communication facilities and non-tower wireless communication facilities, providing for the regulation of such facilities within and outside the public rights-of-way, providing for the enforcement of said regulations, and including severability and repealer provisions. That's a mouthful. Evan, you gave a really good presentation at the Planning Commission meeting on the need for this. Could you please repeat it?
Well, we need it because Mr. Bear wants us to do it, and I can't think of a better reason for that. 20 years ago or so, Millcreek amended its zoning ordinance to adopt regulations governing towers for cell towers and communication facilities and antennas and stuff like that. And the regulations were quite up to date at the time. They'd probably been borrowed liberally by other people. They were important because technology changed, and if technology outpaces law, which it tends to do sometimes, you can wake up and have a cell tower next to you and there's not much you can do because you haven't regulated where they can be. In the connection with codification and realizing that technology has evolved quite a bit since 20 years ago, the board back in October retained the Cohen Law Group in Pittsburgh to assist on two updates. One would be what are called today wireless communications facilities, and the other being the cable ordinance, which, by the way, is on the agenda for the May 12th meeting, Gary. The Cohen Law Group submitted its draft. It was reformatted to comport with the zoning ordinance. We did some work in-house and dealt with some provisions on financial security, because there are going to be some times when people want to put things in public rights-of-way, and we need to be sure that when the time comes, they are removed, or else the money's there to assure their removal. The change also required tweaking provisions in every classification, zoning classification in Article 4, because a use is either a permitted auxiliary use or accessory use or a special exception use, and the lingo changed, so we just changed each section to comport with that. I think that pretty much covers it. But basically, the regulations change section 602, they repeal 614, they amend 8.04.4, which is what allows the tower-based structure as a use on special exception, and then all the sections. See, I know that. I mean, all this work we use. I know this. All the provisions in Article 4. The regulations are limited by what federal and state governments allow, and federal and state governments have been very kind to business, and there are limits to what we can do. We've been satisfied by the Cohen Law Group that this goes as far as we can safely go. The regulation has to be in the context of land use zoning regulations, because you cannot go in and presume to regulate broadband or things like that, or you will be one sorry buckaroonie. So I would recommend adoption of the ordinance.
Okay. Is there any questions from the board?
Well, Evan, simply put it, it regulates where wireless communications towers can be put.
Well, wireless communications facilities generally.
Okay, not just towers.
Tower-based and non-tower-based, and it's also distinguishing those that go plunked into a public right-of-way where Millcreek has a greater interest, and those that might be on private property or co-located on existing poles and tower structures.
We never thought 20 years ago that a cell tower may be on a street lamp.
Well, actually, I was once upon a time Isaac's age, as all of us were. I didn't think 20 years ago I would be here, so I wasn't thinking anything that far.
Okay, if there's no further questions, is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2015-3, regulating cellular communication facilities.
I'll second that.
Mr. Groh?
Yes.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Ordinance number 2015-4, an ordinance of the Township of Millcreek, Erie County, Pennsylvania, authorizing the entry into an intergovernmental agreement with Harbor Creek Township and Fairview Township for the purpose of entering into a joint agreement for provision of professional service for plan reviews, inspections, certifications, administration, and reporting as building code officials, construction code officials, and inspectors under the code for the said townships. Basically what this is we have gone out for contract, the three entities for building inspections on new construction or revised construction, renovated construction, and we have gone with one party on that, and I believe that was BIU was a successful party on that. So this ordinance basically enters into the joint agreement with Fairview and with Harbor Creek Township for the services of BIU.
And it approves the contract.
And it approves the contract. Is there any other comments? Is there a motion?
I'll move approval of ordinance 2015-4.
I'll second it, but I have some comments after, when you go through comments on it.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Groh?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Okay, just a few comments about this. I'm kind of disappointed in the fact that we can't do a different situation here as far as how we're going to enforce the Uniform Construction Code. I mentioned this about a month or two ago when it was brought up when we were looking for the RFP. I don't want to continue banging on this, but I wish there were a way that we could have more than one contracting agency doing this work. I will continue to believe that. The only other options, if we did this work in-house, or if somewhere down the line, Millcreek Township, Fairview, and Harbor Creek formed a COG in which we did our own code enforcement inspections under the UCC. That might be just a vision, maybe it's a pipe dream, I don't know what it is, but I think that there's got to be a better way of doing this. That's all I'm going to say about it.
I wouldn't call it a pipe dream, John. There's legislation introduced to require townships to
I know.
do what you're saying.
Yeah, but anyway, that's all I want to say about it. I've said my piece. We'll just go with what we have. So, thank you.
Next is Resolution 2015-R-9, a sewer planning module for sewer extension as outlined by the Green Township Sanitary Sewer Extension Project, Phase 1.
Rick usually.
Rick?
Planning module, as you said, is for Green Township flows to enter Millcreek Township and then ultimately be conveyed to the wastewater treatment plant and processed there. It's for 262,000 gallons per day, and all of the townships, entities, cities, municipalities have approved the additional flows because they have the conveyance capacity as well as the treatment capacity. So I would recommend approval.
Okay. Is there any questions from the board?
Comes from me.
Is there a motion?
I'll move approval.
Yep. I'll second that.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Groh?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next is request for approval, or proposal, I'm sorry, LifeWorks Erie, powerful tools for caregivers. Mr. Groh.
Yes, a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, a request was made by some senior citizens or a group of seniors to take possession of the remaining money that was in the BRIC fund. If you recall, this is for the original concept of the senior center. That money has been, was spent throughout the last year, or the year before that is, in regards to what was known as the Joy Center. Of course, as we know, that is no longer around. There was about $544 left in it, so in our attempt to close out that account, as I said, the person that requested it, that group is not part of the Millcreek Senior Program. The LifeWorks agency is the designated group that does our senior services. I checked with LifeWorks, and they have a program. It's called Powerful Tools for Caregivers. It's, in a brief nutshell, it's a program that to help caregivers that are taking care of an ill family member, something that it requires a lot of their time, and what they can do to help themselves and how to avoid burnout and so on. Anyway, the LifeWorks director has said that they could do that program for the cost of $544 to open that up for Millcreek seniors or anybody that's taking care of somebody who may be ill. So I make a motion that we approve that RFP in the amount of $544 to LifeWorks.
And this is, in reading their proposal, John, this covers supplies and also books.
That's correct, yeah.
I don't see the schedule on here yet, John, but...
It hasn't, yeah.
Is it a...
You should the essence of the timing of it.
Yeah.
6-week
I'm talking about when it would be offered
we would have to
for the township, but we haven't worked that out yet.
We haven't worked that out. We'll be coordinate that through Judy Zelina here at the township. Yes, thanks. Good point there. So, I make a motion to approve that RFP.
I'll second that.
Mr. Groh?
Yes.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Okay.
Next is the proposed agreement between Millcreek Township Sewer Authority, and Green Township. Basically, this is a agreement between the township, the Sewer Authority, and Millcreek, which kind of details what's going to happen from that sewer planning module we just did. As Mr. Morris has said, Green Township is planning on entering into the sewer lines of Millcreek Township up around Route 890, I believe it is, and they're going to convey flows through our system to the Erie wastewater treatment plant. The flows that they're going to convey are acceptable, and they fall within all the confines of what we're allowed to send down to the sewer treatment plant. So this agreement basically details that information. Is there any questions from the board?
Just one comment, and maybe Rick or Jerry, maybe you remember. Many, many years ago, Green Township first started talking about how they're going to handle their sanitary sewage. They had problems with their Act 537 plan. They had problems with their septic systems. They were talking about building their own sewage treatment facility, right, Rick, in Green, which would have cost huge dollars, millions. And at that time, we thought, the township thought, that Green Township would be sending their sewage through Millcreek, as they are now planning to do now. So the township, Millcreek Township, purchased additional capacity from the city, and Green Township was to reimburse us for that capacity. What year was that, Jerry? Do you remember?
Back in the 90s at least.
Okay. And as part of this agreement, we are going to be reimbursed to the tune of $663.91 for the capacity that we purchased, but Green Township never reimbursed us for. Well, now we're going to be reimbursed as part of this agreement, which is a nice plus, on top of the fact that Green Township is going to have their public sewage treated by the Erie Sewage Treatment Plant. But with that, I would move approval of the proposed agreement.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Groh?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next is sidewalk deferral agreements. Rick? Oh, I'm sorry.
Two.
Yeah, sidewalk deferral agreements.
The one is located at 3455 West 40th Street, and the developer is PLP 7. There are no sidewalks within the area, and we recommend approval of the sidewalk deferral agreement.
Okay, is there any questions from the board? Okay, is there a motion?
I'll move to approve that sidewalk agreements for those two properties.
I'll second it.
Mr. Groh?
Yes?
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Communications, Jerry?
I have one item. I would request approval from the board for a budgetary transfer. I would request to transfer $225,420 from the Major Equipment Purchase Administration account to the Police Department Major Equipment Purchase account. This is due to the software maintenance for 2015 on the computers. There were upgrades done to the Windows, and there were server licenses purchased, and as you know, we originally budgeted everything for the IT department under administration, and I would just like to allocate these expenses by department.
Okay.
So this is not a new expense, this is just
No, it's not.
Just a transfer.
covering it. Okay.
Yeah. I'll move to approve that transfer.
I'll second it.
Mr. Grow?
Yes.
Oh, public comment, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Grow?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
That's all I had.
Brian?
Okay, I have a couple of things. First, from our building maintenance department, Jerry Berger secured quotes on a footrest. This is for the grill room at Erie Golf Course. The first was from ESP Metal Crafts for $1,307. Second was from Kegworks for $1,147.02. And the third was from 4rails.com for $1,441.78. Luke Black was our carpentry foreman in the building maintenance department, recommends going with ESP Metal Crafts, and he notes that this quote contains a welded miter on a 90-degree angle that will be more durable and utilize less hardware. It will take shorter time for installation than the low quote, and I would move approval of that purchase. And this is a budgeted item.
Okay.
That's what I was going to ask.
So, yeah, I will second that.
Okay, Mr. McGrath?
Yes. Oh, public comment.
Public comment?
You got me again. Public comment. Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Grow?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Also from Parks and Rec, Ashley Marsteller would like to hire Matthew Puda. He would be a part-time in the maintenance department at $7.65 per hour, and I'll move approval of that.
Okay, I will second that.
Public comment. Okay, Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Grow?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
And on the same note, as far as summer help goes, from Gary Snyder in the sewer department, we would like to bring back 2 summer help that we had last year. First was Max Knight, the second was Rich Chury, and they would be available on May 11th at the appropriate rate, and I'll move approval of that.
Okay, and I'll second that.
Public comment? Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Grow?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Yeah, I've got that, yep. Also from the streets department, 2 summer help. First is Thomas Coker, available on May 25th. Second is Jonathan Jarris, available on May 11th at $8.45 per hour, and I'll move approval of those 2 hires.
And I'll second both of those.
Public comment? Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Grow?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
That's all I have.
Okay, I have a couple things from the PD. Permission to retroactively approve for Westlake Fire Department Fire Police to work traffic control at Presque Isle State Park on April 19th, 2015, from 7 a.m. till 1 p.m. This request came from Richard Shaw, Chief, and the detail is for the Mercy Walk for Women at the Presque Isle State Park Marina Crossover. We do have written requests and for signatures if approved. This is being done retroactively because it came up and the supervisors were not available last week for a meeting, so we're going to retroactively approve that, and I move approval.
I'll second that.
Public comment? Mr. Grow?
Yes.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Next is for permission retroactively for Lieutenant Michael Little and Sergeant Leslie Mitchell and Corporal Mark Irwin to attend the annual lethality assessment roundtable at the Doubletree Monroe Pittsburgh Convention Center on April 28th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. No costs are associated with this training other than approximately 6 hours of total overtime for travel. The lethality assessment program is part of MPD policy in which we take extra steps to assist the victims of domestic violence through SafeNet. And I'd move approval.
Okay, I'll second that one.
Public comment? Mr. Grow?
Yes.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
And I vote yes. And lastly, permission for Corporal Dave Parmenter and Patrolman Kyle Caldwell to attend Applied Suicide Intervention Training at Crisis Services, 2560 West 12th Street on May 7th and May 8th from 10:15 to on 2015, from 0800 till 1600 hours each day. This class is designed to educate individuals in the communication skills when attempting to prevent suicide. The registration is free and there are no other costs involved, and I'd move approval.
I'll second that.
Public comment? Mr. Grill?
Yes.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
And I vote yes. That's all I have. John?
Okay, yeah, I've got a couple of things here. First thing is, this comes from Rick Morris, Township Engineer, in regards to Engineering Department summer help. They're requesting approval to hire Renee Trapp as summer help in the Engineering Department starting May 11th at the appropriate rate. I'd like to move to employ Renee Trapp for the summertime.
I'll second that.
Public comment? Mr. Grill?
Yes.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Okay. And something, in case the public isn't aware, there's a new Planning Commission meeting schedule. I just want to reiterate that there are due dates. These are available on the Township website, along with our meeting dates, too. So just keep that in mind, because they have moved around a little bit. And in addition to our broadcast here on the local government channel, thanks to WQLN. We also, last week or 2 weeks ago, started an additional YouTube channel, and I hope that the Times and anybody else will pick up on this, because there are some people that do not have Time Warner cable, and they use Dish Network or something like that, whatever it might be. But the YouTube channel, we've always had one, and that dealt with the educational and informational programming. A lot of it with Judy Zelina was producing and directing, and also in the program too. But we have another channel that will begin, and it's strictly Millcreek Supervisors meetings. So if anybody wants to view these meetings, they can see them on the YouTube channel. They probably won't be available until Friday of this week. I think that's when, by the time we get it back, because WQLN does the disc for us and everything, the recording of the disc, we get it back, and then we can place it on the YouTube channel. So anybody wishing to see these meetings afterwards, by all means, we do have made these available for everybody. I can't think of anything else that we can do to make these meetings available to the public if they can't make it here. So that's all I have there. Thank you.
Thank you. Evan?
Oh, you want Isaac?
Yeah. Isaac?
You want to go to Isaac?
Yep. Go ahead. You have a comment?
I think that us reaching out to internet by using YouTube is one of the best ways. I wasn't able to actually watch most of the supervisor meetings or meetings in general because I don't have cable. I've since cut cable. We haven't had cable for about 2 years now. We do everything through the internet, and it's much easier for us. And I guess us reaching out this way is something that shows that the local government is trying to reach out in every way possible, and this is, I think, a great step forward.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for your comments.
I have nothing.
Cheryl? Rick? Chuck? Citizens to be heard. Gary?
On the YouTube channel, I like to, I want to congratulate you for doing that, because you're more advanced than the county council. And you feel that citizens are more intelligent than stone. And secondly, I'd like to thank the board for the continued efforts of transparency, and most likely Evan, because I did read both of those ordinances you put up there. Because this information is now, through evidence and girls, is now available on the website for everyone to read. Before, you would have to come down here and rumble around and find it and get it to read it. This is much more convenient. I'd like to thank you for your continued efforts, and again, applaud Evan, even though he was just a little tardy on a couple of those. Thank you.
We'll have 5 for you the next week.
I can.
Gary, somebody will still find a way to give us a thumbs down.
Is there anyone else? If you give us your name and address, sir, and please sign in.
My name is Tom Bain, 4843 Equestrian Drive. We don't let the horses there, but we have to think. Let me go here. Yeah, of course, I want to talk about the water situation and the sale to Erie. It may not be a popular topic, but I feel it was kind of fortunate that the 100% rule for agreement to pass that item was held. As I see it, and these are my opinions, the situation is it started with a study group and it morphed itself into a steering committee. I remember they were going to have a study group, and suddenly there was a guy on the steering committee to have this done. We see the end is in sight. It seems to me that there's pressure on you fellows, on the supervisors, from the county or a new taxing group to declare all these townships and their services and products are regional assets. A regional asset will morph into this one big regional asset group, maybe the county or the regional governor. They will just take it away from you. It will take our basic Millcreek self-government, dump it into Erie, which will be a giant Erie, taking advantage of all of our hard work and your hard work. Now, I know at least three of you guys, you've resisted demands in the past from this same group to combine the purchasing, the police force, and even your method of government here. They want to go to mimic the Erie government of 7 councilmen. So that sort of gives you a tip-off of what's going on. Now, specifically, back to the original subject, this regionalization doesn't work, and Millcreek will be in this regional vortex, and it will disappear. It's like eating a sausage from the inside out. Once you take everything out, you're left with the skin. Now, practically, on about 3 minutes, Erie did the same thing back in the Tulio days. What they did is Erie Water, they sold it to an authority. The authority gave them some money. The authority took over. What happened to the water bills? Well, they had to pay for the bill. You know, they had to borrow the money to do it. So that transferred right on to the water company and to the customers. Now, we are going to be in the same situation. We are taking part with Erie, who has a porous system. They can't collect their bills. They couldn't collect the garbage. The management is in question, and their maintenance is terrible. So why would we want to hook up with them when they're counting on us, our 7,200 people, to get their bond issue approved? And who's going to pay for that bond issue? Our 7,200 people. So you're in effect taking a loan for whatever amount it is and transferring it to the people using the water to pay it back. It just doesn't make sense to me. I think there hasn't been a lot of information, but I think it's something that really has to be considered again. If we, and I don't want to go through a long list of possibilities, except that once we had our wells, we had Pennsylvania Water as a private company. We could do them both again. There are companies that buy water companies. American Water is on the New York Stock Exchange. They're looking for people. But I think we really have to explore everything. The deal with Erie, we're going to get stuck with their bills. And that's what they're looking for. I'm sorry, that's what it is. But the cash received from that sale, the same as Erie. It will slowly disappear. If you want to do something, you could lease Erie into lines. That would give you forever money coming in. There's no difference in the, you know, as of now, there's no difference in price. But leasing may help. That covers it without getting too riled up. I appreciate your time, but please give it consideration. It looks like it's just a vortex you're trying to just suck everybody in. First, what'll be next? The fire department?
Okay.
Roads and schools.
Mr. Baum, before you go, I just have a couple comments to make.
Okay.
Number one, I believe you're the gentleman that wrote the letter to the editor.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
They published it afterwards.
I have that here, and I just, it seems to me that perhaps you don't understand what's going on in this sale. Number one, do you believe that we're selling our water authority to the city of Erie?
No.
Okay, who are we selling it to?
I believe it's the City of Erie Water Authority.
Right, and you know that's an independent organization, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
ours is an independent organization.
Okay. You mentioned the American Water Company?
Yeah, that's just a typical company.
Do you know what, and the American Water Company was a thought?
Yeah.
Do you know what the American Water Company charges their customers per 1,000 gallons?
I have no idea.
$11 and change per 1,000 gallons. Do you know what you pay? Do you know what you pay for water?
About 4.5.
And probably, yeah, it's pretty close, about 4.5.
Yeah, it's kind of.
So where is the benefit of going to somebody like the American Water Company?
I know nothing about them. I just know that they.
Now, you also mentioned in your letter to the editor that Erie couldn't get a bond issue without having more customers to pay.
That was in the Times News.
Yeah, that was your letter to the editor. Well, Erie Waterworks actually borrowed a sum of money, okay? The sum of money is being allocated, originally was being allocated to system improvements, okay? They've carved out a portion of that money as a potential for purchasing the Millcreek Township Water Authority. If it doesn't happen, they're still going to borrow that amount of money. So the customer base isn't important. Now, let me finish. You made the statement that they need the 7,200 customers to pay it, and they can't pay it, and it's going to fall back on us.
Yes.
Well, we did have an independent evaluation done by a consultant, and it's shown that the 7,200 additional customers will pay for the bond issue that's being floated, okay? I just want to make some clarification here. You asked what the township's going to do with the money. The board has discussed that, and I think we're pretty much all on the same page, and we agree with you. We don't want to fritter that away. And I think the board's wishes would be to take that money, place it in a dedicated fund, and utilize it for projects which are dictated as the main goals of a second-class township. That's transportation or roads, and safety, which would be the police and fire department. Now, you also said in there that Millcreek hired a firm, and I'll give you the exact quote. Millcreek hired a firm to inform the public about the issues, but its real job seems to be to manage information and news content.
Yep.
Who hired that firm?
It was in the paper, that's all I know.
Yeah. It wasn't Millcreek Township that hired that firm. It was the Millcreek Township Water Authority.
Okay, well, that's fine.
Okay, well,
somebody did.
I'm just saying that you wrote a letter here.
Yeah.
You wrote a letter here, and there's a lot of things in this letter that aren't basically true. And I know it's your opinion and so forth. And I got to almost, is Mr. Guerrero here? I got to almost chastise the newspaper, because what are they doing? Are they just printing anything anybody writes? They aren't looking for clarification or accuracy in the whole thing? Yeah, yes, that's just, I mean, let's not let the facts ruin a good story. Okay? What I would suggest Mr. Bohm, is in the future, when you get ready to put pen to paper, give us a call. You know, we can sit down and at least walk you through the realities of what's going on, be they good or bad. All right? You know, a letter like this, really, it's bereft with inaccuracies.
Well, let me tell you one thing. You have given no information to the public about the damn thing. How is anybody supposed to know anything when 10 out of 1,000 people have some idea what's going on, and you're working around with all this baloney, tying up with Erie, going into the regionalization, taking over your townships, your police force.
Who's taking over the police force? Nobody's taking over the police force.
That's what they were pushing a year and a half ago.
No, they weren't. Who was pushing that?
You were here then.
I was here. Who was pushing selling the police department?
The same group. Now look, that's all I have to say.
Okay.
You made no effort to educate the people.
I think we've made an effort to educate the people, pluses and minuses, over the last almost 6 years. You know, perhaps you weren't privy to that information, but here again, what I suggest in the future is when you get ready to put pen to paper, give us a call, sit down with us, and we'll try to explain to you. Then maybe when you write a letter to the editor, it'll be accurate.
What you do, you're probably right. But when you have 3 days, you just see this thing going on, you're going to write something.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thanks for your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Take advantage.
Is there anyone else? Hearing none, is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
I'll second.
We're adjourned at 8:33.
You're watching the Millcreek Government Channel, powered by WQLN Public Media.